Right now, as you are reading this, 340 million Europeans are at risk of losing access to a major online platform. Not limited, not temporarily restricted, completely removed. Elon Musk, one of the richest and most influential businessmen in the world, the man behind space rockets and a platform that shapes global political conversation, has taken a step that many governments once believed would never happen. He faced pressure from the European Union, rejected their ultimatum, brushed off a €20 million fine as manageable, and made a decision that shocked the entire digital industry. Meanwhile, Ursula von der Leyen, one of the most powerful regulatory leaders in Europe, the woman who previously forced companies like Apple, Google, and Meta to change how they operate, is now watching a situation spiral in a way she did not expect. Phones are ringing. Advisors are scrambling. The pressure is building. And the reason the situation feels so serious is because Elon Musk does not just run a social media company. He controls major pieces of infrastructure connected to it, and he is willing to use that leverage. To understand how things reached this point, you have to look back at what may have been the most significant miscalculation of Ursula von der Leyen's political career. This was not a small error that could be quietly fixed through a routine settlement. It was a major strategic decision with long-term consequences, the kind that analysts may study for years. It was a moment where confidence may have crossed into overconfidence. For years, Ursula von der Leyen helped shape the European Union into one of the strongest regulatory forces in the world, and that reputation was built on real actions. Under her leadership, the EU imposed €8.2 billion in fines against Google across several antitrust cases, pushing the company to restructure parts of its business in Europe. Apple was required to adjust how its App Store payment system worked within EU countries, affecting significant revenue streams. Meta had to rebuild parts of its data handling systems to meet European standards, a process that reportedly cost hundreds of millions of dollars and took years. The pattern was consistent. American tech giants would resist at first. They would criticize what they saw as regulatory overreach. They would warn about reduced operations. They would speak about innovation being threatened. But in the end, they complied. They paid fines. They adjusted policies. They stayed in Europe because leaving was not realistic. The European Union represents around 450 million consumers, many with strong purchasing power. Walking away from that market would mean giving competitors a massive advantage. No major CEO could easily justify that kind of financial loss to investors and stakeholders. The EU's power came from simple economics. Europe was too important to ignore. And after seeing this outcome again and again, Ursula von der Leyen appeared confident that this rule would always apply. That belief may have shaped how her team approached their case against X in early 2024. They handled it the same way they had handled previous cases, carefully, methodically, and with strong confidence in the outcome. The European Commission reportedly spent 22 months building a legal case. They documented 847 alleged violations of the Digital Services Act. They gathered testimony from over 300 researchers who said access to platform data had been restricted. They compiled detailed examples of what they described as harmful misinformation spreading ahead of elections in EU member states. The documentation was extensive, running thousands of pages and reviewed by senior legal experts. According to officials, the case was designed to stand up in European courts. When complete, the Commission presented a structured set of penalties. First, there was an immediate fine of €20 million related to concerns about the platform's verification system and whether it could mislead users. Second, there were formal charges claiming the platform had failed to properly address disinformation risks. Third, there were accusations that required data access for researchers had not been provided as required by law, with a possibility of escalating daily penalties for continued non-compliance. The final and most serious measure was a potential ban. Unless specific requirements were met within 30 days, X could face removal from app stores across all 27 EU member states. One of the key demands involved stronger content oversight aligned with EU standards. This included compliance mechanisms that would ensure content moderation followed European legal requirements. From the EU's perspective, the expectation was clear. Elon Musk might criticize the decision publicly. There could be negotiations. Lawyers would meet. But eventually, as seen before, the company would find a way to comply while protecting its public image. What may not have been fully considered was how different this situation was. Unlike many other tech leaders, Elon Musk owns X privately. He does not answer to a traditional board of directors in the same way a publicly traded CEO would. There are no public shareholders demanding short-term financial stability. That independence gives him more freedom in decision-making, and that difference changed everything. For 7 months, Elon Musk had been quietly preparing a response that would challenge every assumption Ursula von der Leyen had made about the strength of her authority. The real question that should concern governments watching the situation is not whether Musk went too far. The deeper question is this: if one of the world's strongest regulatory bodies could not force compliance from a single company owner, what happens if similar conflicts expand into more critical systems beyond social media? On December 8, 2025, at exactly 3:17 a.m. California time, while Ursula von der Leyen was asleep in Brussels, Elon Musk reportedly sent an encrypted message to 14 trusted individuals. There was no greeting, no long explanation, no debate. Just 3 direct words: execute protocol severance. Those 3 words activated a plan that had been prepared in complete secrecy for 7 months. There had been no leaks, no hints to European officials, no public warning signs. The internal project, known as Protocol Severance, had reportedly begun in May 2025 when it became clear that negotiations with regulators were unlikely to produce compromise. The plan had been reviewed in detail during numerous internal strategy sessions. Technical risks were studied. Financial consequences were calculated carefully. Legal responses were anticipated. This was not an emotional decision made overnight. It was described as a structured and deliberate operation, planned with the same focus that Elon Musk applies to space launches and electric vehicle production. When the signal was given, the 14 individuals moved immediately. The operation was divided into 3 main teams. The first team focused on technical separation. The challenge was enormous. X's infrastructure was globally integrated, not divided neatly by geography. European user accounts were deeply connected to worldwide systems. Removing or isolating hundreds of millions of accounts without damaging the global platform required extremely precise engineering. Experts had long argued that such a clean separation would be nearly impossible. Engineers reportedly worked long shifts in controlled server environments, repeatedly testing procedures, identifying weak points, correcting them, and testing again. They understood there would be only one chance to execute the plan correctly. The second team handled financial and legal matters. X had thousands of advertising agreements across Europe, over 4,700 contracts ranging from large multinational corporations to small regional businesses. Each contract required formal termination, settlement calculations, and careful legal coordination across 27 different legal systems. The financial impact was significant. European operations reportedly generated billions of dollars annually for the company. That was not a minor loss. European users are considered highly valuable to advertisers due to engagement levels and purchasing power. Leaving that market meant accepting a serious financial setback. However, according to reports within the narrative of this scenario, Elon Musk prioritized principle over revenue. The argument behind the move was that regulatory authority ultimately depends on corporate willingness to comply. If companies are willing to leave instead of comply, that authority weakens. The third team focused on communication strategy. Elon Musk has long understood that public perception can shape outcomes as much as legal arguments. The goal of this group was to manage how the story would be presented globally. Timing was carefully selected. The announcement was planned to reach Europe early in the morning, ensuring maximum media coverage from the start of the news cycle. At the same time, U.S. financial markets would still be closed, allowing public reaction to build before analysts responded. The wording of the announcement was reportedly refined over weeks. The framing positioned the conflict as one about speech and platform independence rather than simply regulatory compliance. European users affected by the decision would be informed that the dispute was rooted in disagreements with regulators. When the public statement was released on January 2, 2026, the online reaction was immediate and intense. Within minutes, millions had viewed it. Within hours, it became one of the most discussed topics globally. Journalists who depended on the platform expressed concern about losing audiences. Politicians scrambled to preserve communication archives. Many users expressed frustration and confusion. While European officials reportedly held emergency meetings and worked on a response, the situation did not end there. According to this scenario, there was a second phase to protocol severance, and this phase extended beyond social media. It involved satellite internet services operating roughly 550 kilometers above Earth. These satellites provide connectivity to remote communities, rural hospitals, agricultural systems, and regions without traditional broadband infrastructure. If such satellite services were suspended across multiple countries, the consequences would go far beyond social media access. Connectivity for essential services could be affected. Remote medical facilities, farming technologies, and isolated communities might face disruptions. At that point, the issue would no longer be about online discussions or platform policies. It would be about infrastructure, and that would represent a far more serious challenge for everyone involved.